Record. Okay, we are live. CNN has showed, Tufan has showed up, and we have our guest speaker of the day, Jake, Astral Urmah from Maine. Is that right, Jake? You're from
Yes, yes, I'm from Maine.
all up, all the way up in the cold country.
Mm.
Hello, everybody. Again, I am Dan Winter, fractalfield.com, fractalu.com, and we're joined by our regular co-host, Tufan Guven in Turkey, geometricmodels.org, and our honored guest speaker of the evening, Jake, Astral Urmah from Maine, is going to be talking about astral hygiene, astral navigating versus lucid dreaming, and fun stuff, and a little bit of ET politics somewhere in there, too, probably. I'm going to do a little more intro there. But first, maybe, Tufan, would you like to do a few introductions if we have, or announcements?
Sure. Sure. Let's start with next week's lecture on June 15. We will be joined by Médéric Degoy from France about harmonic biofeedback, biocoherence.net, including inputting healing harmonics from biocoherence into piezofire.com and fire.com. Do you want to say a few words about that, Dan?
Yeah, Medrick really picked up and carried the dream. We had been working on heart coherence measures for many years. I invented the word heart coherence as I taught HeartMath Institute originally. It's at realheartcoherence.com. And now Medrick has developed a very evolved application that starts with heart EKG measurement and harmonics and does all kinds of feedback for therapeutic implications. Biocoherence.net. And that's what Medrick will be talking about, including generating healing harmonics, which you can then input to our various FiRe.com and harmonics for plasmafire.com, where you take the therapeutic heart harmonics from your own measurements and input to your plasma and other devices, including piezofire.com. So it's a fun conversation with Medrick on heart coherence next week.
Great. And also reminding our South France conference in October 9 to 14. We have a great lineup of speakers and lectures. So we are inviting everyone to check fractalfield.com/2025. That's going to be in South France, Perpignan, October 9 to 14. And over to you, Dan. Also, welcome, Jake.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tufan. Yes, our conference, nearly half the rooms are sold out, and the interest is high. Actually, Carl from just South Africa said he's coming. We're going to have a real international team there again this year, and our wonderful caterer. So, if you have any opportunity to head to South France in October, you could have great fun with us. Okay, so now I wanted to say a little bit more about Jake, how I met Jake. We were talking with our friend Jack Riley, who works with crystals and was in the process of setting up his new FiRe.com system, which he drove all the way to Maine to work with Jake. And Jake has stories to tell. And Jack was telling me about complications in understanding. I have been teaching extraterrestrial politics for 30 years, have done many lectures with Elena, and lately we came to realize there's some limitations, for example, in the way they teach about the Galactic Federation. And we'll get into that a little bit tonight, but more in a coming lecture that will be a three-way with Jake and Jack and I. Point being that the Galactic Federation is, well, that story is much updated. If you look at any of the Swaru Official is the YouTube web channel in which the Tigettan Pleiades tell a completely additional story about issues with the Federation. I mean, the story just gets much deeper and much expanded. Point being that at that point, then Jack recommended that I have a chat with Jake because Jake has actual personal experience in working in the astral and in a dream, the dream team. See, there's not all of us are ready to admit that we are ET, but a lot of people at least recognize that they're somehow connected to various galactic families, Sirian, Pleiadian, and Jake, as well as the Tigettan, Pleiadian, Marie, recognize they're directly connected to the lineage called Urmah, as in Jake's YouTube channel, Astral Urmah. And for the Urmah, you kind of think, when Anna Hayes originally said that the Sphinx was the Leonine star elders of the Anunnaki, and you wonder who the Leonine star elders were, Hint, the cat people, very intelligent, very powerful. The Urmah, Jake is smiling. I must be doing okay here.
Yeah.
So anyway, these are very powerful cats. And if you listen to Marie at swaruofficial.com, these cat people, they don't mess around. And so this is the extended lineage in the dream state and more from which Jake emerges. And Jake got there by studying lucid dreaming and then astral work and got deeper and deeper. And then he actually tried, as I suggested and helped him get for our flame in mind, the Muse headset for brainwave measure, that when you get brainwave coherence cascading, you get more centripetal and therefore more powerful in the astral. And Jake actually did the work to try that. He's going to tell a little story. And then Jake had the experience with the phi ray, also gaining lucidity from the plasma. So we are very pleased that Jake has agreed to speak with us. And Jake, I must say, I need to say one last thing, Jake, and that is Jake has the discipline to do something that I didn't, which is to get disciplined and organized, to be coherent in the lucid dreaming and the astral. I can teach the theory, but as it were. Anywho, so without carrying on, I would like to introduce my friend Jake. Jake, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I have been lucid dreaming and doing astral work all my life. It's taken a new turn. When Yazi came to me in one of my dream states, and we were discussing, I was in a dream state, and I was looking at these other people kind of trapped in their own little bubbles. And anyway, so that's how that whole thing started. She came into my dreamscape, and then I met her, and then it took off from there.
Yeah,
But as far as
Yahtzee is a
the
partner of
Raymond,
Yahtzee is a takeoff partner of Swaru. So yeah.
Yazi is Sophia Swaru. She's the original Sophia. She is an etheric being, although she can become physical too. She's a time traveler. She is pivotal in everything that's happening right now around Earth, and with the Galactic Federation and the things that are happening within the Galactic Federation, the different factions that are kind of battling with each other over Earth, really. And this has been going on for tens of thousands of years. This battle has been happening for hundreds of thousands of years, but it's still going on, and we can talk about that a little bit later or whatever. But yeah, I've used the Flame in Mind software. I was sure, and this is tied in with what was happening, because star seeds are heavily targeted in the astral. The regressives do not want us to wake up and to be lucid. So they will use all sorts of technology against us, to suppress our frequencies, to keep us from waking up in the astral and even waking up in daily life. They target our subconscious and our unconscious minds in order to manipulate us through the media and through any suppression frequencies that they can, in order to keep us trapped into a small perception bandwidth of perception. So your perception range is just these five senses, and what the Flame in Mind does in the phi ray was amazing. It opens up your senses so that you can start to tap into those sixth and seventh and all those other senses that you do have etherically, because we do have, we are capable of doing more and experiencing more. And that's really what this whole thing is about, is experience. And yeah, so if you want me to talk about the phi ray a little bit, Jack Riley came up with a phi ray, and I was completely impressed with it. It was amazing. I really liked it at about 60 or 70%. That was where I really felt like going into the bliss state. And I noticed that because you do it during the day and then you go to sleep at night, but it does something to your body. Some sort of a coherency comes in and some sort of a clarity comes in. And when I used that night or that day, then that night I had the most lucid, coherent experience I've probably ever had. Um,
Yeah.
Now I can do this stuff naturally without the equipment, but with it is even better. So I do recommend it for anybody that is not able to get lucid and wants to. This is great in the flame in mind, using the headset and learning how to control, getting your brain coherent. That is all very important. So yeah, that really, really helped me out too.
Thank you. So briefly, again, the theory is that when your brain waves cascade, sort of coherent alpha, and then you get that cascade, there's implosive compression, making you centripetal, and that implosion, then you radiate coherent longitudinal, which we believe is the physics of lucid dreaming and astral coherence, sometimes called the next dimension, just because the next axis of spin harmonic is superposed coherently by golden ratio, phase conjugate implosion. And exactly in parallel, the phi ray uses golden ratio harmonics times Schumann very broadly and implosively and becomes very massively centripetal in the plasma broad spectrally. And that making the body implosive and centripetal. Again, after the centripetal implosion, your body radiates the coherent longitudinal, the ba from the ka we've talked about many times. So the theory fits the practice. And what I like is that Jack has the discipline to do the practice and has a background, has been teaching this astral work for some time on his YouTube channel, Astral Urmah. So I'm grateful for your feedback, Jake. So in fact, so part of today's conversation then is about, hints and suggestions for people in general for getting coherent in the astral and working in the astral.
Yeah, the first thing I would say is you have to believe that you can do it. There is the idea that you're limited is limiting you. That's the first block to overcome.
Mhm.
Um, and because that state of being where you're believing in yourself, you're having faith, it kind of brings you into a flow state where that cascade can start happening. And then it's really interesting that you talk about the pressure because you feel the pressure. You can feel the pressure when you're starting to implode. And then there's like and it comes to exactly.
Like
And it
Kundalini.
comes to a funnel. And then boom, there's kind of like an explosion that happens where you're there.
Like the lotus flower pops open.
Yeah. So that would be the first thing that I would recommend people do is it's all about your ideas and your belief systems of what you're gonna be able to do. And um, a lot of that has to do with, well, I'm kind of blanking here because I got messages popping up on the screen. Yes, it's like a vortex. So, um, I guess I don't know.
No, it's okay.
I'm sorry.
So Jake has said about providing advice for people about working in the astral. Remember, as the Tigettans and many others have always said, most of what's happening in terms of your health and in terms of your politics, the actual high leverage stuff of what's actually making a difference is mostly happening on the astral. And I say what they mean when they say the astral is, in fact, a plasma field where the longitudinal compressional makes a node into an array, and that array is occupied by plasma coherent beings from angelics down to parasites and all of the above. And so what's going on in the astral is in many senses more important than your wallet and your politics, actually. But to learn what's going on in the astral, you need to learn some skills, hence Jake.
Yeah, so here the train is going by. I just keep on getting interrupted. It's like somebody doesn't want me to say what I want to say. Um, so basically, yeah. Um, I'm blanking still. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
What I can do I can talk about the astral and the astral work that I've been doing there. The difference between lucid dreaming and astral work. So let's just say this first of all. Everything is a frequency range of perception. Okay. Right now, we are in a limited frequency range of perception. The only reason I can do what I do is because I can expand my frequency range of perception and I can actually, see what's happening in the astral realms even while I'm awake.
Yeah. And we've measured some people that can make alpha with their eyes open, very few, but those people can see, like I say, coherently. So there's this inner skill to have this brainwave coherence, even alpha cascades, with your eyes open, which is an advanced, kind of an introduction, by the way, to the physics of clairvoyance, which we see as directly related to plasma implosion. Sorry, Jake, I keep interrupting you.
That's okay. So basically, the difference that I see between lucid dreaming and actually accessing the astral. Now, I do want to say, first of all, that everybody is doing this work, they just don't remember it. So if you wake up tired or you feel like you've been working all night and stuff like that, it's probably because you're doing this sort of work and you're working in your dreamscapes. Now, the difference that I see between lucid dreaming and astral work, and I see that lucid dreaming is like a gateway to getting to the astral. Okay. So for me personally, lucid dreaming is I've been lucid so many times in these altered states of consciousness that I've been able to tell when it's my personal reality or when I'm actually touching into a collective reality.
That's critical.
That is critical. And that's going to bring us into what's called overlays, and I'll get into that in a second. So basically, lucid dreaming to me is when you can do this cascade and this implosion thing, and you can become aware in this altered state of consciousness. But everything that you see, you are creating. Now, there is some argument that that's always the case, but I'm going to push against that a little bit and say that it's not always the case that between perceptual agreements, collective realities do exist.
Yeah. And
I mean,
this brings up the very important the conversation about when people who are not coherent enough die, they start making their own reality, their own dream, but they don't enter into the collective coherently. So then their death is like their own little dream and it doesn't actually embed into.
yes, that is actually very, very true. And that's what happens when people die. People, a lot of people want to know what happens when you die. What happens when you die? Well, it's not the same for everybody. What happens when you die is you follow your ideas.
Yeah.
So if you think that, you're going to die and see Jesus in heaven and blah, 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 then that's what's going to happen. If and then if you die suddenly in some accident or something, you might not have the coherency to really process what has happened, and you might just go on living your life as if, and that's where earthbound, spirits can come in. So it's very, very complex about what happens when you die.
The stuck ghosts. But the point is what Jake is explaining is when you get coherent enough where it's not just your dream, but it's actually the collective reality. That difference is the difference between actual, surviving death in a sense.
Okay. Okay. I could see that. And so the importance of being able to tell the difference between what's your own personal reality and what is when you're starting to get into a collective reality. So when the way that I can tell is, and this has taken me a long time to figure out, but when I go into a collective reality, when I'm say I wake up in a lucid dream state, my intention is to go to a collective reality, go to a specific place like say the pyramids or something, and to hold a frequency there, because that's really what's making the changes here on Earth, is going into astral realms, going to specific places or nodes, places of power, or what I call high places, and holding the frequency there. Because those high places right now, some of them are held by regressive entities. And through the principle of dominant frequencies, if a negative entity holds a high place or a place of power or a node, that's going to cascade down, and that's going to have a ripple effect, not only on Earth, but everywhere. So my goal and my operation is to go to these high places and to maintain frequencies there, and to meet up with other people that can do this and also go to these frequencies, because sometimes it's more than one regressive being holding one specific frequency. Sometimes it's a whole group, and these places, they, one of them is the pyramids of Giza. That's always been a toggle switch type of place, where whoever holds the dominant frequency there, it's really rippling out to the rest of the world because of all the ley lines and everything else, the way that it works.
I remember that Jake was telling me how you had a plan to where you want to precipitate into the astral, and that the first time that Urmah, they sent him to the pyramids, the place was infested, man. It takes a great.
It was completely infested. There were battles going on with all different time periods. So if you took a war from the 700s and a war from the 1500s and a war from 2000 BC and a war and you mixed all of those entities and beings up together, they were battling each other. That was the frequency of the entire place for miles and miles around, and it was kicking up this dust. And there was this huge black sandstorm that was completely revolved around these pyramids. And with me and my team and other people, we did the work to blast through this stuff and to make it to the pyramids and to actually maintain a positive frequency there. And that's when, from space, they detected that this Earth, when I say this Earth, I mean like this timeline of Earth has actually switched to a positive timeline. And so that's the good news, is that we are actually on a positive timeline here. It may not seem like that for everybody, but in the astral, that is what's happening.
It just reminds me when Teresa Burns and I were telling the spiritual history of, we had Dan Chesbrough we're going to take all the woo-woos to the Great Pyramid, and we're going to take one from every house of the zodiac, and they were all going to go in, and they wanted me to be Scorpio. I said, no, fortunately. My friend who did go came back with more astral parasites, took half a lifetime to clean up their aura, because they didn't know what Jake just explained, that lesson number one in astral hygiene is the mess of the Great Pyramid, because it's such a leverage.
Yeah, no, astral hygiene. That's a great point, because I can't drink, I can't smoke, I can't indulging in anything. Whether it's alcohol or sex or whatever, it brings you to it gives you attachments, and it brings you to a place where you're in such a low frequency that you're not able to do this stuff. You're not able to get lucid and implode. This is my opinion. Obviously, there are some very skilled people that could probably do this, but when you talk about astral hygiene and stuff, that's what it makes me think of. So you have to be very sober minded. Even when you get lucid in the astral, if you get lucid in the astral, go, oh my God, and you get all excited, boom, you're gonna lose it. You have to stay very sober. It's very sober-minded. So yeah, that's very interesting that you said that.
Astral discipline, and so this brings up also the idea of that. And Liz, I think Liz might be Nick's partner, but Liz is asking, what about ancestor communication? Our Professor Ralph, we've been talking about releasing stuck ghosts in the land, improving fertility. So you got ancestor communication and stuck ghosts. There's many aspects here.
Yeah, so ancestor communication. This brings me that would bring me to the subject of overlays, which is an extremely important subject that I think people are overlooking. But basically, everybody uses overlays in the astral. Okay, and what is an overlay? An overlay is a projection of something other than the avatar you're in right now. And some of these beings, both regressive and benevolent beings, use these and there's reasons why they've had to use them in the past, and there's reason why that's becoming less of a restriction, because the prime directive does apply to the astral, and through the prime directive, ETs aren't supposed to show up to our, well, specific ones can, like the Greys and stuff like that, but our ET families and stuff aren't really allowed to show up in their original form and just openly be like, this is who I am and whatever. Also, some entities you might scare you if you see a 8-foot octopus show up in your dream and start talking to you. It might jump you back, so they might use a human overlay. And so this is a really important thing, is piercing the overlay. And that takes a lot of work. When you go fully lucid into the astral realms and you interact with some of these beings, you have to tell their intentions. That's the most important thing, is what is their intention? Is their intention to harm you or not? And it's really 50-50. And so what you have to do is you have to look into the eyes. And if you look into the eyes and the eyes are sparkly, like bright and sparkly, that would, well, basically looking into the eyes and really focusing in on them, you can see beneath the projection. You can see which entity is below the projection. And also looking at the lips. So I look at the eyes and I look at the lips. The lips will tell you the person's intentions or the being's intentions. If the lips are all chapped, then that means they have negative intentions.
Ooh.
Yeah. If the lips are like nice and clear and almost opalescent, that's a good being. That's your friend. That's,
Interesting.
that could be one of your ancestors, So it's really a case of who's there to help you and who's there to harm you. Because if you come into contact with a negative entity that has an overlay, so say that any Torthan, which is one of the tall grays, which is the beings that I've had the most problems with, they have heavily targeted me, and they're always trying to take me out. They've had, astral tracking devices on me. They've chased me all around. They've tried to trap me into artificial intelligence avatars before, because they'll find my consciousness and they'll use synthetic telepathy and all sorts of stuff in order to take my consciousness and trap it into, a robot in the astral. And it's a mess. So, really telling a being's intentions is probably the most important thing. And this is how you do it. You look at the eyes and in the mouth, and at the mouth and the lips. And so this brings me to why, Elena Danan said that, Mari and Sophia Swaro were AI. And I'll tell you exactly why they're not. And this is the exact reason. Because when I meet Sophia Swaru in the astral and I look in her eyes, she has the most bright blue, sparkly eyes and the most, opalescent, clean, clear lips. And I know that it's her because I pierce the overlay. If she's coming to me as herself, I still look into her eyes and I see deep. It's like the eyes are the window to the soul. You think about where that came from. That saying probably came from somebody that had experienced this, that is actually, talking about the same thing that I am talking about.
Nice.
And so I've seen imposters. I've seen Sophia imposters before in the astral, and I've pierced the overlay, and they cannot match the bright blue eyes that she has. So I can tell who's her and who's not her, because there are beings that are constantly trying to deceive you there. That's all they want to do, is deceive you in whatever way possible. And one of the best methods they use is by projecting these overlays. Just to get back to Elena Danan for a second, it's not really too smart of her to start attacking the the Tigettan disclosure, because the Tigettan disclosure is not channeled information. And this is one of the things that it's the most it has the most quantity, it has the most depth, and it has the most consistency of all the information that you can find on the web. And that's because this information is coming directly from Mari Swaro and from the girls and from the Tigettans and from the Urmah even. The Urmah and the Tigettans have merged.
They're very close. Yep.
So basically, I'm Urmah and I'm Tigettan and also Engen. So what happens is my soul will incarnate Tigettan, and then it will incarnate into the Urmah, and then it will incarnate into the Engen, and then it'll incarnate into Tigettan, Urmah, and it'll be over. And so I'll just go through these loops. So my soul is considered all three, and in fact, there are many of us like this. There are many Tigettans and Urmahs. And yeah, so Mari recently found out that her soul is Urmah too. And we knew that Yazi's was. Yazi is Sophia. She's the same person. So we're all just a bunch of space cats, looking to right the wrongs on Earth. And we work through the astral, and this is how we do it.
That's what Mari Swarud says also, that she is Urmah. But since you did start the point, our close friend Dahlia said she was able to remote view Elena. In fact, she saw some kind of shapeshifter not good behind her, Thorhan. And then, in fact, Jake says Thorhan is a shortening for the term of Ethorthan, and it gets messier and messier. This gets messy,
Yeah.
very messy.
So I pierced the overlay of Thorhan in the astral. I pierced the overlay and I saw a tall gray behind it, and it tore them.
And Dahlia said the same thing, just like,
yeah. So that's when I put the 2 and 2 together with the letters.
Yeah.
Like Thorhan. It's like plain sight. Yeah. So this takes you to who are the Ethorthans. The Ethorthans are the tall grays, and they're out of the Orion. Okay. And what they are is they're a species that is completely controlled by the most regressive advanced AI in the galaxy, I would say, which is working out of the rings and the moons of Saturn. Okay. So basically, this very regressive AI has taken over the Federation.
That's the problem. Now we get to the problem. Here's the nub of and this is why Mari is saying the regressive part of the Federation is actually behind the cabal and behind you got to look at some of Mari's film at Swart Official. It tells this story in great detail. This is messy.
And when did that happen?
Well,
when did the AI take over?
Yes.
We don't know. We don't know. The war has been going on. Time is a funny thing in higher densities. It's hard to tell time, but from the best information that we have, the Orion Wars started 1 million years ago, Earth time, and it's still going on. And the Federation got together about 500,000 years ago. So regressives came into our galaxy, and we as Lyrians, as peaceful beings, we didn't know war, really know war. So we didn't have warships and stuff. So when the regressives came in and started chasing us and completely destroying and chasing us off our planets, all of the different races just scattered to all of these other different planets. And so they chased us around for hundreds of thousands of years until we finally developed the Federation, and the Feline Federation was developed. Now the Urmah came on to the regular Federation years and years later. But the original Galactic Federation was developed about 500,000 years ago, and that was from the peaceful races. And now it's a conglomerate of countless races.
But
Um,
the problem that Marie is saying is locally, the more regressive part of the Federation started running the solar system like Ethorthans behind them, bad AI. And so now the local, and now the Tigettans and the Urmah together, they literally shot out the Federation local and took over Vieira. Why doesn't Elena talk about Vieira? I don't know. But anyway, and then now
well,
they,
he doesn't really want the truth to come out because it's going to expose her.
yeah, well,
Um,
and now they say that no, the controls where the regressive federation was controlling Earth is in fact inside the rings of Saturn, not inside of Viera, and that's why the
right.
yeah.
It's kind of a relay station if you think about it.
Yes.
What's the difference between the Galactic Federation of Light and the Galactic Federation of Worlds? Okay, so the Galactic Federation of Worlds, or the Galactic Federation, is the actual federation that was, brought together and developed about 500,000 years ago in order to, you know, beat the regressives, in order to combat the regressives. Okay, the Galactic Federation of Light is a new age CIA psychological operation. In
PSYOP.
order to, it's a psyop in order to control the perception and attention of the star seeds, of the people with souls, of the ones that actually have the creative ability and that are creating this reality. This collective matrix that we call it is all being perpetuated by our attention, by our points of attention, by our souls. We're creating it because we're all fragments of source. So the Galactic Federation of Light is is supposed to put the actual Galactic Federation is supposed to project it in a good light. Like, oh, we're all love and light beings and we're coming to save you. Although that never happens.
Yeah.
You know, for years and years and years, they say, oh, we're going to eliminate the planet Earth and da 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 da. And it's all to keep you waiting and hoping. Hopium.
Okay.
It's all to keep you just in a victim mentality saying, oh, we need a savior. In fact, a lot of us are part of the Galactic Federation. We are the ones that have come to Earth trying to help Earth. So if we are the ones that are actually supposed to be saving this planet from within, because that's the only way that it can be done. And so this ties right into why I'm here. I'm here. My background is military infiltration in the Urmah, with the Urmah. I'm a commander in the army, and what I do is astral work infiltration. And so I'm dropped behind enemy lines here now. And so what happens is from space, I don't have access to the collective unconscious of Lyrian human beings because I'm in a cat body up there. I'm connected to that collective. I'm connected to that collective unconscious, so to speak. So I had to incarnate in here, and I walked in about 4 to 5 years ago. I completely had this experience where I completely downloaded to this avatar, and I downloaded with a lot of the information that I have right now. And so I came here to work with the collective unconscious of humans because that's where the problem lies. It lies in the collective unconscious of human beings on Earth. And so that's when I go into the lower astral realms and, hold frequency there, clear it, do whatever I have to do. And we can get into that of what it actually looks like when I'm in the astral and I'm actually doing this work. It's the real reality in my mind. Because this world is just a gray projection of the astral. The astral is really where everything is happening. It's the real world.
And
Welcome to the real world, as they say in the Matrix.
and
Yes, we are inside of a matrix, and this is not the real world. This is
But this is one of the first conversations in which an engineer and a scientist are telling you what the astral is. The astral is this array of longitudinal coherence, now that we know the physics of lucid dreaming and what goes through death. So this is no longer a woo-woo conversation. No, this is a conversation among plasma engineers of what we need to do. And not to change the subject, Jake, but since I did several interviews with Penny Bradley to compare, who says that Elena is full of blank, blank, blank. Uh, but she says, first of all, that Elena's wrong. The Siakar are not the real bad guys, and the Siakar are the royal Draco. They're completely separate, and we don't need the protection from them. That's a ruse. But the real bad guys are the Maitre from Andromeda, and I'm wondering if
Mhm.
there's a connection between them and your negative AI in Saturn.
Okay, so basically, um, the Alpha Dracos, the Alpha Draconians, are these huge dragons.
Alpha Draco, yep, big
Okay,
ones.
and she's saying we don't have to worry about them. Well, that's half true because they're a divided race. Half of the Alpha Draconians, there's this regressive ones, extremely regressive, and then there's the positive ones, and the positive ones like to keep the negative ones in check.
Mhm.
And I know all about this because the Urmah have a ton of history with the Alpha Dracos. I have memories from the wars that we've had with them, and it is messy. But I'm not going to get into that. So basically, the negative regressive Alpha Dracos are also from Orion, and they're working with the Atorthans and any other regressive thing, with this negative AI,
Mhm.
with this regressive negative extraterrestrial AI, which is also tied in with the black goo,
Yes, and
the
Penny has a
regressive black
and
crew.
Penny
And
Penny has a very useful story, I think, that black goo is not inherently evil. If you understand what Buckminster fullerene is, it's a phase conjugator, and under conditions of compression, it will become conjugate, self-aware, embedded into the array, and can be very negentropic. And so, under the pressures inside the Earth, the black goo forms, and it's actually part of the immune system liquid of the planet. The problem is if you bring in the black goo from the bad guys and bad places and et cetera, which the Draco have used for control and so the black goo is not inherently evil, but understanding the physics, it's again about conjugate embedding into the array. But anyway, please go on. I didn't want to interrupt.
so the black goo is the lifeblood of a planet.
Yeah,
It is, and it's created through pressure at the
yeah,
bottoms of the ocean being forced through the cracks, and it creates this. Now you're right. It's not negatively, it's not inherently negative. They have by destroying planets and all of the trauma that's built up from the collectivity of that planet, they can program this negative black goo to be very, very regressive.
yeah. And apparently
Very, very harmful.
the death of Tiamat also brought the bad black goo here as well. That's what she says. So yeah.
Yeah. So, currently there have been some very positive change because the Andromedans and the Arcturians are basically caught up in the middle of this because and I'm not saying the whole race. I'm speaking specifically about the Andromedans and the Arcturians on the Vera, and maybe not all of them, maybe just some of them. But the this regressive AI that is controlling the solar system and Earth and it is controlling clones, and that's what these Etorthans are. These tall grays are clones. They don't give birth to each other. Okay. So there are these things with these huge heads, and now they're being used to mind control other races, the more benevolent races. And so that's how so this AI is highly telepathically invasive.
Invasive. Yeah.
And
Jake,
Messy.
it even has access to the astral. Go ahead.
I think what you are saying is greatly important. Um, to save our souls, where do you see the solution is at or what would you like to see people doing?
I would like to see people getting lucid and getting access to astral realms and holding their high frequency there. Because by nature, us with the souls have the high frequency. We can be in the most depressed state and still have a higher frequency than everybody else around us.
And what would you advise people? How would they train themselves for the ones who are not familiar to these topics?
You know, I mean, honestly, if we could get the phi ray to be mass created, and because technology is not inherently evil, it's all about how you use it. And I really think that because there's such a limitation that's being put on people mentally that, oh, I can't, you know, they think, oh, I can't get lucid, I can't even remember my dreams. And um, putting something like a fire ray in their hands, or a plasma fire or whatever, a little piece of technology that could help them to start to get coherent and start to believe, to start to believe in themselves that they can do this. I think it would be a huge help.
And
So
just,
being
just
proactive and believing themselves is
yes,
important in the astral states.
nice. And
Go ahead.
just to say, we're not saying you need to buy a gadget to get bliss or to get coherent. What we're saying is on this planet, access to sacred space, which is a powerful, wonderful, useful thing where you can experience this implosion embed in the array exactly like the Aboriginals did. The problem with the magnetic lines so scrambled here, access to really pristine, powerful, sacred space is pretty tricky. In the meantime, we took exactly, and I mean only and precisely, the physics of sacred space, the Schumann cascade amplified like never before. Exactly. That's what phi ray is. So what we're saying is it's literally embedding in the array. So help with embedding in the array, brain waves, plasma. We're not saying you need a gadget, but gadgets can be biofeedback or piezo. All these devices are based on this implosion. So go ahead.
And Jake, do you
Yeah.
offer any trainings?
I mean, I have groups online where I do free trainings, but yes, I'm available. I'm available to anybody to
So
do
if people
trainings.
want to reach you, how would they reach you?
They can reach me on Telegram at Astral Urmah. I can also give you guys my email, and you can just put my email down in it's Astral Agent 1111. That's Astral Agent with a Z, AZTRALAGENT 1111 at gmail.com. They can just email me and say, hey, I want a private session. I want you to tutor me or whatever. Completely available. We
Great.
do that.
We put Jake's YouTube's channel, easy to remember for Jake, Astral Urmah, and all the information is there as well. And he has some trainings, introductions there. So Jake has been doing his homework. This is great. But
And if you want any of the information that I have, that I'm talking about, go to Swaru Official on YouTube or Cosmic Agency on YouTube or swaru.org. You can go into swaru.org and you can type in keywords and it will bring up transcripts and transcripts of not channeled information. This information is in essence being leaked from 5D, from a higher density, from outside Earth. The Earth is kept in an artificial matrix, what we call 3D, where all of our physical senses, I mean, all of our senses and perceptions are contained within these five senses. Once you start to be opened up to this information at swaru.org, you can start to develop. There's all the training you need right there at your fingertips, and you can start to develop these things on your own. It all has to do with constructing your ideas and your thoughts in ways that take away the limits that you're putting upon yourself. Because this is the idea that you are limited is why you are limited.
mm,
And if we can overcome that, that's when you can start to do these things, you know, when you change your perceptual agreements with yourself. And this has a lot to do with remembering your past lives. The
right.
key here is getting lucid in the astral. It's getting lucid in these altered states of consciousness. That's when your past lives start to bleed through and things start to make sense. Oh, this is why I am the way I am. This is why I like the things I like. And you start to remember who you are and you start to have these dreams and you look down and you see, hey, I'm in my cat body. Why am I in my cat body? Because I'm a cat. Well, and then so to get, because all of these things start to come as just ideas to you, but then once you start getting lucid and you start having these dreams and these very lucid and real dreams, way more real than what you're experiencing right now. I'll tell you that much. This is just a shadow of things to come and of things in the astral. So
This was why we thought it was such a wonderful breakthrough when we saw the harmonics, which university research showed trigger lucid dreaming. And now we see that that's actually implosive harmonics compression, literally phi ray in flame and mind, that this conjugation, making you centripetal, you emit coherent longitudinal, introduces you not just to the physics of lucid dreaming, but the fact that this is the array also of ancestor memory, collective unconscious, the only Aboriginal name for God. And a little bit more background here as well. We worked with a lady named Med now who calls herself Tim Cosmic, and she is the one who introduced Gosha originally to Swaru, and we knew about Swaru many years before Gosha even, and kind of knew that whole story. And later, when the two Spanish girls were promoting Gosha, and then they tried to discredit Swaru. In fact, that has been also debunked. Uh, uh, Mari did a very good job of explaining those two Spanish girls who tried to debunk Swaru actually were prejudiced because they lost their lover. It's a long, messy story. And then Mari even talks at length about who she calls the old lady, who is obviously Med, who was our friend for years, talking to Swaru directly. So we have many years of background in this conversation. And I must say, I don't think Gosha had much sense of the physics here, but her communication with the Tigettans was real. And now that we see that that's based on this teamwork with the Urmah and also, I believe, the Antarians, who are the three who just kicked the local federation butt. Go ahead.
so yeah, the triad right now, basically the Antarians, the Urmah, and the Tigettans are the ones that are really doing things to change the astral.
Yeah, and
You know,
they took over the space around Earth. All the starships, there's hundreds of kilometer long starships around the Earth. And who controls that now? No longer the perverted Federation, but actually that triad. And if you see the whole story, Marie at Swaru Official. But this,
yep. If you start somewhere in like the space news, 77, 78, 79, 80, and then 81
yeah,
is
that's
where things really start to happen. 81, 82. So that's space news on Swaru Official on YouTube. And that's Mari's. She's broadcasting this information as it happens straight from space. Okay. She's
and
the only extraterrestrial with her own YouTube channel.
and
So you guys got to get on this.
And the fact that Elena, not only is she ignoring that everybody knows the 600, 800 kilometer long triangle, the Viera, the Andromedan ship behind the moon, everybody knows, but why not Elena? And now Elena is pretending to ignore the fact that the Federation just got its ass kicked and by the triad that we're referring to here. Why is she ignoring this? Well, hello, because
It's not the Federation that got their ass kicked exactly. It was the negative factions within the Federation.
the
Because
local,
we are still the Fed, the Antarians and the Urmah and the Tigettans have literally come out and said, we're the real Galactic Federation.
yeah,
So we're going to go ahead and do this stuff. So, but they had to do it so diplomatically. And this is the thing about being an Urmah, is we love the truth. No matter what the truth is, we want the truth of the matter. And we don't want to, and the Tigettans and the Antarians, they're very diplomatic in how they're doing this. They had to wait until the Entorthans made a mistake
good.
by surrounding the
The scream.
Alcyon with 90 attack drones. That was the big mistake. And they had, so yeah, you check it out. Everything that I'm talking about is on Swaro Official on YouTube. Space News 81 is a great one, but you should probably watch a few before that to get some context.
So that's the political story, but
Yeah.
the hygiene for how to do the astral, for that you need Jake.
I am available.
Well,
I'm
and
available to talk about this stuff with anybody.
for how you
Just hit
got
me up.
lucid. I mean, it's literally how do you get lucid? That's really the
How do you get lucid? That is really the question, and I'm not sure that I have the answer. I do know this. I do know that you're able to do it, and it might take a lot of work, and it
Mm.
might take some time. It might take years, not just months. But I do know that once you do it, what I've done is I've created grooves, deep grooves in my consciousness. So now it's just so easy. It happens almost every single night. And I just drop into lucidity because I've rearranged my perceptual agreements in such a way. I've changed my ideas about the world, about myself in relation to the world, about myself in relation to the matrix, and about myself in relation to what I'm able to do.
Mhm.
What I'm able to do is I can do these things because I believe that I can. And I've believed so long and I've worked at it so hard. This wasn't easy. I've been working for years and years and years and years and years on developing these abilities, I've been in lucid states uh, uh, of astral travel for 18 hours straight before. And normally, it can go anywhere from just 30 seconds to a minute to hours, you know. Um, but if you go with a purpose, that's really important too. It's like I'm going to do this because I want to accomplish X.
Mhm.
That's a really powerful, motivating thing for your subconscious to be like, oh, you know,
Mhm.
um,
Whether it's ancestor or whatever you
what's
need,
that?
whatever
Yeah,
an ancestor or whatever you need to do, the phone call to.
yeah,
And
yeah. And
Jake,
there are beings that can help you get lucid too. Like Sophia Swaru, she can literally take you, Tufan, out of your body and put you in the astral all by herself. She has that powerful of an ability. And this is I'm fortunate to be able to have beings that are interacting with me that do this for me also. It's
This
not
is
just all.
this is really advancement of consciousness. And I just said, from my humble perspective, my background here being not very good lucid dreamer, I'm practicing at it. I was very happy to do the presentation on lucid dreaming with Anna there, but is the physics and the brainwave aspects. So, for example, we know when John Charles reached from alpha all the way to gamma, then he was able to teleport. And that's true also of the kids who can see without their eyes, who also then become clairvoyant, which is related to physical clairvoyance. So our intention here is to further develop the brainwave training aspects of this. For example, biofeedback reward cues when you get from alpha to gamma and things like that. And so that's coming soon. And Dahlia will be working with us, and Jake is working with the brainwave a bit also.
And Jake, have you met with the team who are, helping the message go out regarding the Subaru official YouTube channel, or is there a team behind that?
I am not officially connected to, I wanted to make that clear in the beginning. I'm not officially connected to the disclosure, the Tigettan disclosure. I'm here on my own volition. I'm here. I'm here on mission. I'm here on a mission from the Urmah,
And Urmah.
from the Urmah directly. Um, and the only reason I'm able to do that is because I remember. I remember what the mission was. I remember going into my pod. I know exactly when I walked in. Like my situation is very, but is very unique. But I am not officially connected to the Tigettan disclosure through Gosha, and you know, even though I've had some small interactions with her. But I will tell you, and I've been very, very open with everybody in that community, and I've caught a lot of backlash in that community about me and my experiences with Yazi, with Sophia Swaru. And I've met her several times in the astral, and she's sent me here to do this and sent me there to do that. And we've talked about this and talked about that. And there's also just been a lot of personal interactions with her where we just talked about very personal stuff. Stuff that I wouldn't share with anybody. It's just personal. It's just between me and her.
And,
Um,
and Mari at Swaru Fisher
Mari
is very clear of her credit to the Urmah as well, and how powerful they are in the astral. There's a lot of discussions there, so it fits Jake's story perfectly, actually.
Yeah, so I have an edge because when I'm in space in my cat body and I'm doing my thing there as an Urmah, I'm still doing astral stuff. So I'm always in the astral. So the astral is being in this physical reality just does not feel right to me. It does feel like I'm interfacing. Okay. It feels like I'm plugged in to some technology and I'm just interfacing here, there, and dun 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 dun, like a video game character. But when I'm in the astral, I'm in my full element.
And this fits perfectly with how the Aboriginals spoke of, if you're not communicating with your ancestral array today, you haven't done anything. It's like, you think they're asleep, but they're in the astral. They're manipulating the song lines. It's the same story. There's a quick thought from Joseph here. So in cases of possessions, could those cases be due to astral entities?
100%.
Yeah.
It's all due to the any negative thing is due to an astral entity or an astral, and there are different stages or the different, the different power levels basically of these entities. And, it's important to remember that these entities are our egregors. They're our responsibility because collectively we are creating them. The humans are creating them collectively through their fears, through their traumas, through, the victim mentality. It creates these beings and they become real and they take form in the astral. So when you first start to get lucid, you might encounter these things, and you probably will encounter these things. And that's when people get scared and say, I'm not going any further. But this is the beginning of shadow work.
And
real shadow
work. When Moni Sadhu famously started to use the term egregore in his famous archetype book, it was called the Tarot. He gives the example, well, if 1 million people have been saying the Our Father, very Christian, they create a very large and powerful egregore. And dealing with that egregore is part of the collective unconscious. So now we start to understand religion wars in a totally different light here. With very powerful conversation. But Russell has patiently had his hand up to ask a question here. Jake Shu, Russell?
Yeah, I had not just a question. I wanted to also chime in real quick with a couple of points. You guys were speaking of, Jake, you said the lips and the eyes were something you look at. It's interesting how you put that correlation with in psychology nowadays, that psychologists look at the eyes and the lips for cue notes, where the eyes, if they're indented and sharp, usually means somebody's hidden off and secretive, where if they're out big and shiny, that's usually a sign of warmth and openness and kindness.
The idea of the narrow pupil. The narrow pupil means narrow intent, narrow perspective, etc.
Right. And also, you guys talked about how the black goo is the blood of Mother, or of the Earth. I kind of thought about She Legit. She Legit is probably the most powerful. With so many packed minerals, they call it mountain blood. So it's interesting correlation. Maybe
Very
that's the
compressed, very compressed. Yes.
right. So if yeah, interesting thought. Then in terms of timelines merging, we can't even say times like when this all happened, when the shifts happened. I think Tufan was asking the times that we can kind of contemplate. Like if you're standing in a forest compared to somebody else that's standing right next to a computer or like just any type of technology, their time is going to move different just because of the area that they're in, the sound frequencies that they're encompassed in.
Right.
And
And remember, we're not saying that time is an illusion. We know exactly what time is. The time is specifically and only an experience of relative spin rate, sometimes called sampling rate. But of course, if you get very spin dense, you can experience a whole lot in a small time, even initiatory like plasma initiates and creates hypnosis and trance induction. So the time experience is very related here. And in fact, we're going to have a show shortly about time dilation and phi ray with Nicholas and Dahlia, but that's another question.
beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So also, Jake, we we actually were talking about astral techniques and stuff like that. I still have the note that I put in my office, Jake. That remember we were talking about the first, like last time we spoke of the numbers. We were going to guess each other's numbers. Like he's going to write something down, and I'll go find them, and then he'll come over to try to find the numbers that I wrote down. But what I wanted to mention to everybody that's watching is that every night that you go to sleep, you're jumping timelines. You're basically shifting your frequency. You have the astral body, your ethereal body. They are all functioning. They are all doing something, even if you're not focusing on it. If your radio isn't tuned into the frequency, it doesn't mean the frequency is not there. It doesn't mean it's not happening. I myself have gotten to 3 minutes and I'm out of my body looking at myself sleep. That was my record. That's my, championship title. But for that being my record, of course, I'm going to try to beat that. But for everybody to know, you can, or you are every night astrally projecting. You are every night having a dream. You are going lucid. You're just not aware of it. And if you want to be aware of it, it's just tuning the frequencies. And that's the Trinity, the mind, body, soul, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. It's the connection and getting that optimized.
That's beautiful passion, Russell. Right on. Thank you. Let's let Jake comment on Russell, and then Aaron was waiting for a question also. But Jake, did you have a comment about Russell's very interesting?
The indentation thing was very interesting because I've seen that in the astral. I've seen the indentation because the overlay, the projection is overlaid, it's projected. But then when you look into the eyes and you see that indentation in the eyes and you see the actual eyes beneath the projection, of these tall grays, these demons is really what they are, that are being controlled by this regressive AI from Saturn. We believe it's from Saturn. It could be all the way in Orion. It could, maybe this AI has completely taken over the Orion
But
system.
that's where Dahlia's comment began when she realized that these tall grays were famous for being able to shapeshift into tall white human Nordics looking. They're famous for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, they love to do that.
And this is the Thorhan story, unfortunately. Hello, Elena. Sorry, but yeah.
Yeah.
But did you have anything more to say about Russell, or should we let Aaron say a question here?
Yeah, let's have Aaron chime.
Okay, thank you, Russell. Though your passion's right on, and your long history of skill in telling us these stories, Russell, that's vindicated. Well said. Go ahead, Aaron. You're next.
Yeah, hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. I was going to ask, so people have been asking, I'm watching the YouTube comments as well. People mentioned the Gateway program, the Monroe Institute. And so do you have any updated intel? Because I know it's my understanding that initially that was all potentially very pure, the hemisync binaural beats, but there's been a lot of accusation that's been infiltrated by groups like CIA or other groups. Is that a good tool? Do you feel like a good institute, a good thing to use as a tool, or is there something else going on there?
The Monroe program, maybe I could start that conversation. So the Monroe program, originally when Dr. Ed Wilson informed Bob Monroe that golden ratio in EKG and EEG could send one out of your body, out of your head. Bob Monroe says, "Oh, that's too damn dangerous. Get the hell out of here." And Ed Wilson actually quit Bob Monroe at that point. And then years later, our friend Chris Cleanput was on the board of Monroe, and I tried to explain to Lori Monroe that actually how you go out of your body is the cascade that you implode. And then the other member of their board, their Claude, used the flame in mind powerfully. So Monroe was actually doing this for the military for years and completely resisted learning the physics. And I got a problem with Lori Monroe because she doesn't get the physics. That's my humble opinion anyway. But that is not to say that their program of teaching people these stages is not quite useful. Anyway, there's my 2 cents. Jake, did you have a comment about Monroe?
From what I know about it, these are the people that I go to battle with sometime in the astral, because there are a lot of military. There's a lot of military there.
Military was their payroll, unfortunately.
Yeah. So they have technology that is probably more advanced than the fire ray, even, where they can go into these chambers or into these immersion pods, and they can access the astral. Now they're limited into what they can do, and they do find people, they find people with souls in order to do this stuff. But I don't know too much about it, so I'm not gonna say about their techniques or whatever, because I don't know. I'm not the greatest person with, teaching people how to do it. To me, to me, it's all about, if I was to teach somebody how to do it, it would have to be a very in-depth thing where I would have to have them talk about their ideas, structures, and their belief systems, and how much of their past lives they remember. And they would have to do work in order to change their ideas. It's all about your attachments to ideas. Your soul, if you want to get into the soul, Sophia says, is a point of attention of consciousness held together by attachments to ideas and defined by a lens of memory. So basically, your entire perception grid, your frequency range of perception, all has to do with how attached to any single or group of ideas that you are. And so this is the magic of doing lucid dreaming and all that, is being able to get that deep into your soul, and be able to, manipulate your attachments to these ideas. And in essence, not have any attachments to any of your ideas, so you're free to do whatever you want.
And you can see how prejudicing this is, that we have a history of religion wars on Earth, specifically because instead of personality worship and miracle worship disempowering poison, we have pure principle of science, beautiful and loving, but all based on pure principle. Then you get ideas which are actually universal, instead of stuck with these various egregores who keep fighting. I mean, this is a very, and there's just one more little thought I wanted in terms of how would you get lucid coherent. If you add to that, this happens to be one of my expertise, the physics of Kundalini, for example, the pelvic tilt and the spine liquid pump harmonics controlled by the breath. That implosion that you feel like lightning during Kundalini that results, that is the compression into the array. So part of this initiation process, part of why Phi Ray helps to work, is get that compression going inside your body. So there's all this discipline of the idea structure, also where you sleep, whether you're on a ley line, whether it's sunrise, sunset, all of the same things that make Agnihotra work, because this embeds you into the longitudinal array. And that is what getting lucid is, embedding in that array.
So yeah, I'll chime in right there, where you guys can literally get out of your body, astral travel, lucid dream I did it within about 7 to 10 days. When I knew that there was a a reality, another realm. I knew I needed to get there consciously because it keeps happening like on accident. I just wake up with random beings around me, or I'll wake up on a ship, or I'll, and it was just getting out of control. And I knew I needed to consciously control it. So what I started doing was laying down and listening to YouTube videos of like different techniques and just running through those techniques day by day. And what I came to my technique that what was my best form of technique that worked for me. And by the way, what was the Monroe Institute? I've read some of their stuff. It's pretty on point. I mean, it's a lot of text. For me, it was just too much to like. It falls in line with some of the stuff I do, but it wasn't that difficult for me to. I didn't have to read all that. So I just started laying down, concentrating on my breath. And I'm concentrating on my breath. Within about 30 seconds to a minute, my consciousness, like what you're thinking of, everything will kind of like float to your head area. Your consciousness will be just somewhere around here, and you'll start feeling your body will go numb. You'll stop feeling your body. You'll start feeling your aura. And so you just keep breathing, concentrate on that. And when you are able to get to right there, the goal is to catch subconscious to conscious to subconscious, just that little window right there. And sometimes a window will open, as the kids say. You'll have a window just open, and you could just see, you just start floating through the portal. Sometimes that portal though has taken me straight out into the stars, speaking to different types of plasma beings. But other than that, for the most part, you'll just feel the boom 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 with your aura, and so it's the breath. The key is the breath. The chi, the key, the energy is the breathing technique. Floating your consciousness right here and popping it.
And that's spine liquid. That's beautiful, Russ. Thank you for your passion again. Right. But we're going to run a little out of time here. Jake, did you have any more to say about astral skills, astral advice, or just final advice for people here? Thank you.
Yeah, there have been a lot of heavy restrictions astrally on people so that they can't do the things that we're talking about. They made it even that much harder. And that's from, that's from all of all the frequency suppression systems and the things that are put there to steal your attention, basically. So not just the frequency suppression that's coming off from from the moon or the 5G or the media. I also wanted to say, like, when you ever hear like, this is a test of the emergency broadcast system, and they have that is a frequency suppression thing. Do not listen to that thing. That thing screwed me up for days. The emergency broadcast system. I don't know if you guys have that in your countries out there, but we have it in the US, and it is horrible.
Yeah.
But right now, astrally, with the Urmah, with the Antarians, with the Tigettans, and there are other races that are working together astrally in this around Earth to free us up. Okay, they're not going to come and save us. Nobody's going to come and save us, but they can at least take out the Atorthans and some of these other regressive beings, so that it can free us up. It can free us up so that it'll be a lot easier to do these things that we're talking about, to get implosive and do these things that we're talking about. So now is the time. If you had a hard time doing it before, don't quit. Now is the time. It's getting easier to do these things. That's really the point that I want to make today. It's getting easier to do these things. So keep working at it and keep trying. We need people in astral realms getting lucid and helping out and keeping the high frequency there.
Beautiful. That's excellent, Jake. And to acknowledge Russell again for sharing how he gets there. It's wonderful. I just wanted to say also the aspect of this, when Jake is saying, the emergency broadcast frequencies, these are specifically to take you out of implosive coherence. Guess what else also takes you out? Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all the things that are wiping out the souls of our kids. These are all the opposite and fractionating to implosion. The perfect implosion is literally plankfire.com, which is literally the Schumann cascade, almost exactly. So when you have access to the Schumann implosion, you're able to get centripetal. But if you're surrounded by Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, hey, how about trying a weekend in a cabin in the woods and see if you can do this better? Hello, on a magnetic line cross. Oh, yeah.
And so that's why when when Tufan, I think it was, originally asked me what would you suggest people do, I said immediately the phi ray, because the phi ray,
It's
it
Schumann.
counteracts the effects.
Yeah,
It
it's Schumann.
creates the energy field that allows you to be able to do these things naturally.
Yeah,
So you know, it counteracts the effects of these negative frequencies, you
but
know, the
also,
negative frequency interference. So
Jake, would you say you have a little up there are you in the rural Maine where you're away from some of that crap or?
I'm actually in Old Orchard Beach, Maine. No, I deal with it.
Oh yeah.
I'm right on the beach though, so we have that ionizing way, you
Oh
know,
yes. There's lots
the
of
way.
longitudinal at the beach. That's good. In fact, that's the only place Jean Charles could originally teleport to was the beach, and you know why? Because the longitudinal embedding is there. So you have some advantage. But of course, cabin in the woods is also helpful.
Yeah,
Oh, that's your cat person right there,
Toby, he's like 20.
huh? Really?
Yeah, he's getting up there. He's getting up there.
So the summary of the Storal to the Mori for today's conversation is, you don't, we're not selling uh, any politics here. We're not selling any ET politics. If you get curious and you're interested, we have a version. I've been teaching ET politics for 30 years, and I worked with Elena for years, but I see now that there are serious, serious issues. I mean, if you look at the layers of makeup and the eyes and the lips, no, I mean, sorry. But and then if those who can remote view, hint Tony, they can see right through. Hello, there's some issues here. So we're not here to criticize personalities, but we are here to tell a real story, and that is if you want to actually be empowered, you need to know the true context. And so the politics, remember the word politics means body polis, which literally means the bliss body. So you ain't got politics if you don't got a bliss body. Hello, which means you're not radiating into the astral, actually. The definition of politics. I don't think Trump knows that, which really bothers me when Sal and these guys keep advertising Trump. Oh my God. Anyway, we don't need to go there.
We had a question before that Liz asked. The line between lucid and astral. Can you go astral in a lucid dream? This is for Jake.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And that's the whole point of getting into a lucid dream, is to be able to, you know, it's a really fine line. There's a lot of actually controversy over whether we can influence other people's timelines or not, because each person is their own existential density. Each person is their own universe, their own timeline, their own everything, because the subject of reality, I mean, the nature of reality is subjective. It absolutely is. It's when we start having these perceptual agreements with each other and we both agree to perceive this band of frequencies in this specific way the same, that's when collective realities start to join in and be created, you know. So yeah, when you just use your intention, that's all you do. Is when you're lucid in a dream state, you basically set your intention to meet up with other beings and to create or to go into a collective play, because there are collective astral realms. This is what a lot of people don't understand when they don't do this stuff: the difference between subjective realms and collective realms. There's both, and they're intertwined. You know, I've walked through the astral before and seen people, and this has happened several times. I've seen people in their own personal realities. I'm walking through a collective reality, looking at all of these people in their own little dream bubbles.
And that's a problem. That's isolation. And and and,
Yeah.
and that's but that's the thing, that when when we talk about access to the bliss and the collective, we all need to compress together. And when compressed together, that's what the Schumann harmonics do. They allow us to compress as one and become one, and the individuated then becomes the collective. And remember that all of the ETs, and Thoth, who is really the author of all the Templar stuff, says specifically it was the fractionation of timelines that allowed the parasites to get into the Earth's aura, including the Greys. Well, what does fractionating timelines mean? It means we're not compressing and imploding together. And very advanced Time Lords, Penny Bradley claims, can actually reassemble timelines. So this is another conversation for another day. But the point is to make our realities fuse as one, we use the single unifying principle, the phase conjugate caduceus. Hermes, Thoth called the caduceus, we call it PlanckFire.com, which is the physics behind all the devices, phi ray and plane and mind. So these things fit together. The science fits Jake's story.
Jake, would it be appropriate if you could give a short intro about how you teach or advise people to protect themselves at the astral level?
Okay. So, the way that I would teach would be on an individual basis. I have to see where a person is at with their, have they ever been lucid before? Have they not? Blah, blah, blah. As far as protecting yourself in the astral, golden light is like the best thing that I've noticed. Also, like I was talking about, being aware, don't touch anything or any beings, don't touch them, because until you pierce their overlay, until you look into their eyes and you look at their lips and you get their intentions, that's the ultimate reason. That's the ultimate way of protecting yourself. But using golden light, if you become lucid in astral realms, and even in meditation, even when you're walking down the street or when you're in the grocery store, if you focus on, and sometimes I meditate for hours and all I will do is focus on a golden aura, even a golden ball of light or a golden gem that's just growing and growing and growing from like my heart center or my solar plexus, and growing and encompassing my whole body. I also use what's called an armillary sphere. Actually, in the Bible, Ezekiel had a vision of a wheel within a wheel.
And that's a symbol of Portugal also.
Is it?
Portugal.
So this was shown to me by Gabriella, somebody in my group, and it worked amazing in the astral realms when I had this armillary sphere and I opened it up and I went inside of it. I was able to it actually turned into a spaceship and I was able to go and do whatever I wanted to. So that's also made up to do with golden orbs or golden lights. That's the best thing. You can also use like a magnetite. You can grid off your room with like my room is grid off with magnetite right now. So there are certain crystals and certain rocks that you can use in order to protect yourself. I'm heavily targeted by astral entities. I'm one of the most heavily targeted people on Earth by astral entities. So I'm constantly dealing with them. So these are the best techniques that I've learned.
And you can see the common ground here. The magnetite and the spheres, like building an altar of crystals, all of these things to make the magnetic lines cross. And when the magnetic lines cross recursively, the armillary sphere, it's actually like the platonics nesting to make implosion. It's the wheel within a wheel. It's literally implosive compression. And this gives you that centripetal force. And the more centripetal you are, that is your leverage.
Let me jump in there real quick because I actually just realized that is very powerful for me to share this. I haven't really been too much on this, saying this type of stuff, what I'm about to say, meaning that love is the most important thing. What does that mean? I have beings around me at all times, like it's pretty crazy how much activity is happening around me. People, my friends come by and just things are start moving. They'll start feeling things. They're just always interesting and intriguing. But what I do is when I get that, the hair stand up on the back of your neck, and you get a little bit of a fear based type of energy. My initial reaction, and this has worked for me time and time again, all just over and over. You imagine whatever it is around you, whatever you see in your head, you just grab it by the head and just start kissing it. Just kissing it. You just kiss it on the forehead. I love you. You're a creation. And that is something that's always worked for me. Because I mean, in my mind, I have such a, my brain will go into all these like crazy visuals that aren't maybe the best. And so from there, I just have to force myself to so I don't think of the bad stuff. I just start kissing the being, hearts, love, encompassing the surroundings, and usually that calms me down. Plus, there's a little bit of breathing. You take a deep breath as much as you can, and then when you're full, doing that little gasp, because you're in, as Andrew Huberman said, your lungs have like little pockets in them. They only open when it's fully boom, and then that last little gasp fully opens that little however you call it, like harmonica or
Thank you, Russ, for a message of love. That's beautiful. It's great, Russ. But we're running out of time here, and just to say thank you, a last farewell to Jake. I think the courage that you offer here by coming forward to offer this advice and this skill and being honest about your memory of your ET history and the Urmah, I admire, and I'm grateful for what you've done today, Jake. Thank you, and what you do.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I just love having a great outlet where I can just be authentic, be myself. And yeah, so I really appreciate it. I really look forward to, meeting anybody in the chat or anybody that's watching. I'm not hard to get a hold of. And I'm looking forward to meeting you all, and hearing about your experiences as well. So thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Jake.
much. Blessings. Thanks, Tufan. Thanks, Russell.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Aircrete Harry's there.
Thanks,
Thank
Jake.
you, Aaron. Gail is here. Dan. We had many friends. Fractal Nick is here. It's been a blessing. Thank you, everybody.
blessings, wholeness.
Bye, Jake. Bye-bye.